Starting. Oh, we're live
and
now.
We're live.
Here we go. All right, everybody.
How's it going, Creative Network?
Hopefully, everybody will be trickling in here soon. Of course, as you all know, we're on a 1-minute delay. So as we get to your question and answer, we'll try and get back and make sure we answer all of your questions that we can. We'll probably go, it's a 4 p.m. Central right now. So we'll probably go up until an hour or so. And when you stop asking questions, we'll stop. So
we'll stop answering questions.
We'll stop answering questions. That's just how it goes. But this one today is called Dronin Up Business. And I think it's alluding to what exactly that is, which is drone use in the video world right now, which is it's very interesting. It's brand new. There's a lot of controversy around it, or skepticism, or things like that. People are asking for regulation, and then that's going to happen, which is great for safety reasons. But we would love to get you guys some more information about all of that. Let's check here. I'm just gonna check. Oh, okay. So we are good. We've got people coming in. All right. Let me just make sure everything is live. Perfect. And we've got a special guest today. Actually, two of them, Sean and Graham Hill. Sean runs Cloudbase, which is a drone business out in Denver, Colorado, and we have Graham Hill, who runs HireUAVPro.com, which, if you're looking to be a drone pilot and get hired as a drone pilot, sign up with him. It'd definitely be worth your while. But yeah, without further ado, we'll throw it over to them and just let them say hey real quick. But you guys are on here if you want to say hey.
Hey guys, this is Graham Hill, so HireUAV Pro. It's John Murray here, Cloud-Based Aerials out of Denver. Hi everybody. Welcome to the live hangout. Looking forward to talking about and answering any questions you have about drones in the next hour. So excited to be here.
And where are you guys right now? Tell us where you're at.
This is Cloud-Based headquarters. This is the workshop where I keep everything maintained, dialed in, fixed, and charging them with it. Yep.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, we did want to ask you guys a couple questions just based around UAV flight and unmanned aerial flight, and how we should go about that, and how people who want to jump into that business, how they should go about it, and just talk about a little bit about the regulations surrounding it, or lack thereof, or in the licensing that should be coming soon. But yeah, just want to start with you, Graham. Want to ask you a question about just fill us in on HireUAV Pro, what you guys are doing, and what services you provide, and all that good stuff.
Sure, yeah. So we started HireUAV Pro about 8 months ago. Just wanted to really meet the demand, I think, of obviously a really quickly growing industry, but one that's been around for a while, but there's been such a rapid influx of people that are looking to do it for production. So we're seeing, I think a lot of that probably, the explosion of the digital cameras have allowed people to translate that into aerial flight. So taking, the newest GoPro and, your T3i or your 5D, and being able to now mount it on a stabilized gimbal system and fly it is why we're seeing such a huge uptick right now, obviously. So what I wanted to do is create, something for the startup business to market themselves. So what we do is we allow anyone to register initially, and you get a free business listing, and make it on our map, which you'll see right when you get to the landing page. And right now we're about 250 businesses, but we're really not after quantity. We're really looking to vet our businesses based on quality. So we allow people to fill out this profile, add any media, their demo reel, give us a lot of information, And then we go through and vet them. We want to get more out of our community. We want to know, who are you working with? What projects are you working on? What are your goals for 2015? How are you looking to get there? And then down the line, we're supplying support to those businesses, through information. And one of the big keys to that for me is to be working with and communicating with people like Sean here, who has, a professional business that's been in business for a couple of years, flying anything from, I don't know if you can see up there, the Phantom starter model, all the way down to what he now is getting in the air is the Cinestar heavy lift, which he's flying the Red Epic camera with the motor stuck right to the bottom of it. So
great.
We see that evolution. Eventually, we'll hire you to sort of represent that pilot, that forward-looking pilot that's trying to get to this model right here.
Yeah.
So that's really our focus, and I think, I think Sean represents that really well, and that's why we're hanging out here in his studio in Denver.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
So tell me a little bit, and tell the viewers, and Sean, if you want to take this one, y'all's relationship and how you guys got, started working together a little bit.
That's a great question. I came to flying drones through, I was involved in on ground floor, a couple of startups in Denver. And back in the boom days where anything was possible. And got stagnant in those startups, and they became big companies, and saw this and through adventure film festivals. And that's my passion is adventure film, and saw the first shot, knew that this was, immediately told my wife I'm quitting my job, and I think if out there know how that conversation goes. But it's the technology. It was just a really good crossroads of passions. We started, I threw myself into it like a lot of professional operators do. I went from the outset to be a professional operator, started flying nonstop, didn't go to market until I felt that my product was actually good enough to other reels and other professional operators that were really in the game that I saw. But also a big part of the way I operate is I want to build a collective. Starting here in Denver and then regionally. And because I was tired of figuring all this stuff out through chat rooms, and you're basically left on your own.
Yeah.
Really days work. So I really longed to have a collective. So I started a meetup group, which is now about 225 pilots in Denver, to the front end of Boulder, Denver, Colorado Springs. And through that, some key players showed themselves. And meeting at our local drone shop one day, they're actually a drone shop in Denver, and they all deal in drones and servicing and manufacturing. I met Graham, so we started getting on the organization, found out what he was doing. So the mindset was the same, and obviously it doesn't hurt to be listed, to be found by companies looking for, professional operators and various tiers. So,
yeah, it's always good to get connected with work.
Yeah,
That's definitely a great thing. And well, cool. So I guess I guess we'll just jump right into just the whole talk of FAA regulations and how that has gone over the past couple, I guess, a year or two now that they're really talking about it more. But yeah, just let's talk about a little bit about the regulations, where they started out at, and then what it's like to fly a drone right now. Are there any regulations right now on flying a drone? And just discuss a little bit about the laws surrounding it or lack thereof.
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, the long-held laws have always been centered around the hobbyists. So the hobbyist was allowed to fly 400-foot elevation or height, and then had to remain within line of sight. And then obviously there are restrictions upon where you can fly with respect to airports. And there's becoming more and more, municipal regulation and locational regulations. Obviously, the Park Service has a big do not fly jurisdiction over those parks, and then the BLM also sort of shares that belief. But you know, the businesses, operators that, you know, are much, you know, that carry the liability insurance, that log the man hours and the flight hours, were sort of overlooked in all of that. And so, for a long time, the FAA was very slow to even address that. And so, anyone that's been in this business long enough, like Sean and myself, you know, and Hire UAV Pro does a good job of this because it's a global website. You know, we see a lot of our traffic, and in some cases, more of our traffic coming from other countries like the United Kingdom and France and countries that have addressed those regulations early and often. That's not to say that, you know, there aren't rogue pilots out there that are, you know, the borderline hobbyist pilot that's doing things that they shouldn't do, like interfering, you know, in some cases we hear these articles about how they're flying near an airfield and stuff like that. That kind of happens everywhere. But unfortunately, in the United States, they never really integrated these professionals into the airspace, and I think that will help mitigate that. Once we allow people like Sean to have these drones and to get permits to fly them, you know, I think we'll we'll see less and less of these articles that we see all the time in the news about someone, you know, crashing a drone into the White House front lawn. You know, every time we see them, we're like, oh, you know, it's just pain to see them. But, you know, where they stand, I'll let Sean talk a little bit about kind of where they are now.
Yeah. Do you feel like the barrier to entry right now is just people, you know, just being unaware or scared about those types of things, crashing and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because usually the crashes and the incidences that make headlines are 99% of the time hobbyists. People that go out and they start flying it, and after a while you get cocky, you do the same thing, you goose it and see how high it can go, and da-da-da. That's fine. There needs to be a delineation, and this is finally happening with the FAA, that's going to separate out the professional pilots and then take the hobbyists back to a more controlled. I mean, flying your model aircraft's been around forever. RC clubs, just to give an avenue for hobbyists, so they know they can go to an AMA field that's sanctioned. Our local one here actually is in a flight path for Centennial Airport, which is kind of ironic. But it needs to be split. So right now, it's just kind of all one. I'm seeing in the last 2.5 years in the field, you know, the public is a lot more accepting and less interested in the drone. If I'm flying a construction site or project, you know, key things. I have to have permission. I'm on private property. I stay 400 feet. You know, I mind my P's and Q's. I wear high visibility equipment. I stand in the most visible place I can and set up there. So when people see a drone, keep it in line of sight, they see me with my radio, with my vest. I'm supposed to be there. The measures I take, hopefully they'll be addressed with as part of the licensing program. It's more and more accepted. It's just when people see something flying that they don't see the operator. That's where people will find you and say, "Hey, what are you doing?" So it's been interesting because it's been stressful to operate in this space where, you know, quote unquote illegal purposes, but everything stems from an old memorandum from the early '80s that was written for hobbyists, and that's what the only document that's been in place. So.
Can you speak to a little bit about the proposed regulations that you've seen? What the certification might look like? I know they're going through, you know, the changes right now to put that into more of a law. But can you talk about what those regulations are going to look like, and then two, how do you think they're going to enforce that? Is that going to be through, you know, municipal governments like, you know, police force and things like that, or how do you think that's going to go about?
Yeah, I think what I understand of the press release that happened a few weekends ago from the NTSB and the FAA chairman, they're very rational. That's kind of what we've been talking for. We're in my meetup group, we're involved locally here on privacy laws. That's a completely separate issue. But as far as the FAA regulations, what that's going to look like is, thank goodness, because they issued a handful of exemptions in Hollywood 6 or Hollywood 7.
Yeah.
Which was great, but you had to have a private pilot's license to
Yeah.
fly. You had to have a certain level of medical examination. Flight manuals, which a lot of these manuals don't exist for these things. A lot of these parts, there's no directions, there's no meaning.
Yeah.
It was making those up as you go along. Keeping your flight logs, which I have a big book, all my flights log,
Okay.
and so on. So the FAA regulations, you have to go to one of the test centers. There's 6 drone centers across the country. They'll have flight tests, obviously, for your competency. They'll have logged hours. I don't know what the thresholds are. I don't know if there's a licensure that they'll come up with, the number of flights, the number of hours you have logged. Maintenance logs are really important, just like a full-size aircraft. If something fails, the FAA, the NTSC wants to know what model it is, what serial number it is, so that there could be an industry-wide caution on a certain part is maybe defective. If you're flying this, you might want to change it. And then certain maintenance logs. Every certain 100 hours, you need to change your props.
Sure.
And a lot of other details in there, I'm sure, but it seems very rational, very, very sensible.
Yeah. All things really to keep everybody safe and without injury, and meant for safety. That's what I noticed out of reading all those regulations too.
So I've got a question. Given kind of the skepticism and kind of the fear mixed with the excitement of this up and coming technology, for filmmakers who are very excited about using it if they haven't already, and kind of those mixed feelings amongst the public and amongst pilots and filmmakers, and what advice would you guys give to someone who, maybe a filmmaker who has not really experimented with drones before, but is wanting to kind of get into it, enter the market, and utilize the technology? What kind of advice would you give them, or any wisdom you might have? Because I'm sure we have a lot of people watching right now who are kind of on the fence there.
Yeah. 2 things. Like, there's seems to be locally with production companies I work with and around the country, is there's a lot of companies that are starting to tinker with it in-house in flying quads. Practice, start slow, use limited amounts of shots, and then work your way up just like the professional operators do, and dedicate 1 or 2 people. We work in a team, because once you get the bigger rigs, that's what you need. One guy to fly the camera, one guy to fly the platform. So start slow, because as the laws come out and the regulations fade, it'll become more clear about how much you can do internally, or how much resources you need to dedicate to staff to have a dedicated drone pilot. And if you're looking to hire somebody, it's pretty evident right away on the profession. A lot of guys will bill themselves as professionals, but make sure guys have experience on set, that they have, UAV insurance. General liability works, but specific UAV insurance covers each individual aircraft. Okay, and I'll before that. The right questions should be asked about conditions, what sort of what do you want shot, how high, and really make sure that the pilots themselves are asking the right questions. And I've said no to a few clients, or suggested no. That's not okay. That's just not safe, and I won't fly that way. Let's do it this way. So, guys who've been working on a lot of sets in a lot of different locations, and there's certain areas where you don't. It doesn't matter how much I would say first.
No.
I'd say
when it comes to.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Chad.
Yeah. Sorry. When it comes to, I was just wanting to touch on the point of insurance. You talked about specific UAV insurance. I know a lot of people might not know exactly where to go about getting that. Is that something that every insurance agent would normally know about, or is it something that's highly specialized that you would need to go to a specific agency for?
Yeah, there's aviation specific it's pretty easy to Google. Anything that's aviation specific insurance. I've been covering light aircraft pilots, finding out all running to an avenue for the UAS insurance policy.
Yeah, I know like transport risk is one that a lot of people use.
Okay.
There's a couple others, and I'm sure more and more will come online. But yeah, it's still pretty specialized right now. But yeah, it's a good way. There's definitely three primary ones, but
and getting added onto policies to event permits for I'll shoot commercial real estate, and they'll require that the location added onto the streets.
Cool. Yeah, so I guess the next little bit, we would love to look at some of the drones that you guys have and tell us a little bit about what you got sitting there and how you built it, because I'm sure those are ones that are built from scratch. But yeah, just tell us a little bit about the drones that you have there.
Sure. Yeah. Well, we'll start. I guess we can start with the introductory model, which
the brick
is flown at introductory level piloting. But
this is what learning looks like for anyone who's getting into it. It's actually a cause of a spun propeller that thankfully was straight up overhead of a parking lot. But
oh wow,
that's the Phantom model. That's definitely the go-to choice.
So yeah, a little bit. It has like a little bit of a different design on top of it. Normally you see it all white. You can see the NASA light, which is the flight controller in there, and then usually inside of it it has its own GPS module. So with this one, it gives you basic flight controls. You can fly it manual, but you can also fly it in GPS, which allows you to, lock it into a basically if you let go of the controller, it knows exactly where it is, and it's going to stay even in a nice strong wind. These ones get, I think 15 to 20 minutes flight time. Obviously, we're at 5,000 feet, so we're going to see a decrease of a couple minutes in flight times across all of our models, and it actually increases the more weight that we're putting up there. But 15 to 20 minutes, and drop a go for it.
Yeah, and the gimbals are important. DJI makes the Phantom. DJI is kind of the 800-pound gorilla. Their manufacturing prowess and their engineering capabilities are pretty astounding. And I've started with a home-built quad before. They're great because you can save money, but you buy pieces and parts from all over the world. Specifically China, there's no instructions. The flight controller is inside the brain. They're on the open source, and the off brands can be very confusing because they get right into the internal settings, the very technical settings. Whereas the DJI products are plug and play. There's a nice GUI interface. You plug it in, and it tells you exactly. Again, keeping safety and learning quickly in mind is something you have to know. The return to home feature is built into all models. And that's one thing that I tell all the new pilots I talk to is in our group, I try not to let guys fly until they can show me how return to home works, that it's activated. And what return to home is, when you power this up and put it on the ground, any one of these units, it's going to the GPS will track that and mark that home spot in front of you where you power it up. And so if you're flying and something happens or you just lose orientation, you hit the switch on your radio, and the brain will actually take over, and land itself right in front of you and turn on. We actually use it as part of our flying. We'll get far down range. I'm flying, he's flying a camera where, I've got an onboard camera. I can see where my orientation. But sometimes it's easier just to hit return to home. This rig will fly itself back till I can hear it, see it, take it off of return to home, and then continue flying.
And it'll send to, I think up to like 200 feet too, so that way it won't, fly back through trees or anything like that, or through buildings.
Oh, great. Okay.
You can also set a fence with it too, which is nice for like a beginner pilot. Like you can tell it basically from that location, don't go any further than 150 feet in any direction, and it'll get to that fence. Yeah. You can't go any further forward. That's another nice learn.
Oh, very cool. Nice.
The DJI Inspire is the new one. That's the new hot ticket. About $3,000 for the unit. 4K camera, which is a camera, but the flight characteristics are amazing. But these things, I planted these in ponds and dried them out, and they fly.
Yeah,
They're durable.
Wow.
They're really durable.
and they've got the new Kickstarter drone that actually, I think there's a new drone on Kickstarter that has like a little foam pad or something that inflates that can fit in with that really nicely. So
Nice.
fly over a lot of water. So it looks like it's a good product for saving the drone.
Now, what happens? Like you showed that prop that failed. Now, if all of the prop, I mean, of course, if all of the props fail, it's going to fall. But if one prop fails, is it still going to stay up? Depending on whatever model you use, I assume if you have, 8 props and one fails, you might still be okay. Is that correct?
Yeah.
This guy's probably gonna fail.
Four propellers.
Okay.
There's not enough lift to hold this weight. You're it's like 4.5, 5 pounds.
Okay.
But one, you lose one, you're done. That was a strict bolt, that one that crashed. Actually, one of the best photographs I have was a GoPro was playing. It was dusk in this parking lot, and it went into a death spiral and took a picture. That's one of the best images I had. One of the best photos I had. So most people start off with the quads. 3DR, Iris is a good one. The Phantom 2 I recommend with the H3 gimbal, now H4, built for the GoPro. And what's nice about these is it takes the video out of the GoPro, feeds it through the system, and then there's an antenna that will come out here and give you video down. And then so you can have a ground station that will pick up the video signal so you can actually see. Now with the Inspire, you can use iOS or Google devices and just use your iPad. You can change shutter and take photograph or movie. It's incredible what you can do with the pads now, the integrated technology. So most people start off with the quads and then move up to the hexacopter. This is one of my workhorses, the DJI S900 hexacopter. As you can see, it has collapsible arms, and those fold down. The props fold and open up like so. This thing's incredible. I've flown this up over 14,000 feet in 15-degree weather, and it flies like a champion.
We were just flying a couple weeks ago in a box canyon in Uray. They had to do the famous ice festival there, doing a shoot, and we were in a 30-foot wide canyon with heavy snow and winds at like 10,000 feet. And while it was sketchy at times, we had no problem getting some amazing footage there. So it's definitely a workhorse.
Yeah. And then this carries again.
Impressive.
And you said that one was DJI has built that one as well.
These come pretty much built as we were talking about before. I shot 8 different solar arrays in one day the other day, and that's in and out of my truck, set up, make sure everything's running, go, close it down, move on to the next location. So portability and reliability are, in my opinion, this is one of the best all around rigs for that. There's Taro makes a great hexacopter, T-A-R-O-T, Taro. And there's a bunch of different makes that will carry, really camera, the number of propellers means how much lift you have. So GoPro quad, this is the Lumix, the GH4. So you need extra propellers to carry up to 4 or 5 pounds of weight. This is the DJI gimbal that's built specifically for the GH4 and unfortunately built specifically just for one lens. And this is a 16 mil wide angle lens. They're so finely balanced that when you do try to put a different or longer lens on here, it vibrates and it gets really ornery and it doesn't like it because it's so finely balanced. But you're getting up into the $10,000 range all in, not including batteries, radios, and whatnot. Flight time on this, I get up to 15 minutes, again, depending on the weather, the altitude, the temperature. Batteries don't like, as everyone knows, batteries don't like cold that much. Same thing with the big lipos that fly these things. So again, you can buy this basically as a continual or one system. Comes with a video transmitter. We've got one for the video here, and then I don't know if you can see this camera here, but that's my camera, the pilot camera. So I can see my orientation of the craft, And then while the camera's flying and pointed in different directions, I can also see that. The gear on this retracts. So you can get your gear out of the way when you're flying, which is key, because that way the camera can point any direction without picking up the landing gear. And lastly, Grant, why don't you show them the...
So then we move on to the big boy stuff. Let me avert your attention a little bit this way. So this is the Cinestar Heavy Lift, and it's exactly what it does. Is it now we're talking about lifting, 20, 25 pounds with this model. Now we're up to 8 motors, much larger props. They actually use wooden props, much more stable, and we're actually sticking a Movi right to the bottom of this with something that's called a toad in the hole. So this whole apparatus comes right off, and then you can just go handheld Movi. So he'll show you. So right, just like that. There's the whole rig. It's about the size of
48 inches.
So 48 inches. So like a large truck tire, something like that is a good indicator of how big it is. And then you can see on the bottom we've got our red Epic stabilized here. Oh, used to be stabilized. It has the ability to pop off these gears, and then you just using the toe in the hole, pop on your handlebars, and now you're going handheld. And then we have all the shutter control going into the red. So on my screen, I have a little smart HD screen that I'm flying. I see everything. I can turn video on, turn video off. Eventually we'll have the follow focus so that we can do that the whole time that we're in the air. So we're getting about what, like maybe 10 minutes of flight time out of this, which I'll show you the battery. You're strapping one of these guys to it, which is, I'd say, about 12 pounds battery lift right there. So that's the other thing you always have to, versus what, something that might be more in the phantom range. Now look at what you need to fly that bad boy. And in some cases, 2 of these, some people will use, but that has to be factored in when you're doing your calculations. And so, Sean kind of talked about, let me steer you back, where we met at this place called Autonomous Avionics in Denver. And Sean put tons of man hours into just understanding the entire system and working with a technician who's been doing this for years named Bernie Hoffman, and calculating it to the gram what this weight's going to be all up in the air, and what the battery, how that's going to balance out throughout the aircraft, throughout the motors, how that's all going to play together. So this is something that like as Sean said, you really got to work your way up to it, and this is sort of like the all-in model. There's no steps to be skipped when you're flying this much weight. So.
Yeah, and I saw you, Sean, move your radio control system, your setup there. You want to talk a little bit about what you got there, and have you guys looked into using the Oculus Rift at all, or anything like that, like a point of view viewfinder or anything like that?
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. That there are goggles available, and guys have been flying FPV or first-person view for a long time, and you might see guys with goggles with an antenna on it. Fat Shark is the manufacturer of those goggles, little screens inside. Some pilots, some camera operators, or some pilots choose to use glasses or for first-person view flying. Actually, FPV is kind of a sport. Guys, foam gliders, they see how far they can fly in 10 miles. They just jack up all their transmitter and the power. And it's kind of a sport. And Trappy, Raphael Perker is a pretty well-known guy on the internet for that. I know Zeiss makes a really good, is it Zeiss or Panasonic? Yeah. I'm sorry, somebody's made a really high definition version where you can actually slide them down like bifocals on your nose and still watch line of sight and then still see the detail for framing shots. But what we prefer, and what I've flown for some time, is this is my radio as a pilot, and I fly the helicopter while Graham flies the camera. So I have two screens. The screen here with the shade is the pilot camera, which is the camera mounted on the actual platform itself, so I can tell my orientation when I get way out there. It also has my heads-up display, my on-screen display for voltage, for altitude, for distance out, camera settings or direction degrees, and a number of other information that I can, as a pilot, keep track of when it's time to bring it home or keep it down. I also have in the small HD here the actual picture that comes out of the red, so I can also see the frame. So the communication's interesting between a pilot and the camera guy. There's a lot of back and forth.
We're still working on it.
Left, no, this right.
The other nice thing too is like as opposed to having the goggles, you know, like we kind of are adopting the belief that it's sort of like, you know, think of it like a quarterback and a wide receiver. You know, we're almost when we're out there shooting, we're running, you know, almost like a dynamic formation. There's the actual flight path that we're calculating, and then there's, you know, okay, what is the camera going to be doing within that flight path? So it's sort of like, you know, sort of orchestrating these plays and capturing the shots. You know, it takes a lot of work understanding what the pilot's going to do. And I mean, sometimes I don't know how Sean is able to have such control of the aircraft, because, like, you know, I find myself looking up at the aircraft too, because he's got it like, you know, 2 feet away from a tree, but he manages to just have like complete control over the aircraft. So
that's actually a good point. If you're a production company out there and you're wanting to hire pilots, a reputable team, you know, aerials are becoming almost you have to have for certain types of outdoor shots or outdoor productions. It's really find the team. Maybe ask a team, you know, what do you have to do these signature moves, or you know, how do you guys work together? And so that's important, because we're starting our own little list, our own little logbook of different types of shots that we give our own name. You know, bounce shots and follows, and really trying to push it, because you know, aerials look a lot the same when they're just straight shots, but getting the dynamic moves where the platform's moving and the camera's following a subject at that same speed. So the background's moving faster and the subject slows down. Things like that really is a good sign of a good team. And we're constantly watching the other professional operators out there, the guys that we look up to, and see their signature shots and try to come up with those ourselves. But yeah, these tools allow us to do that. You know, the radio, these are 2.4 gigahertz radios. They'll go out for miles. We run the Paralinx video transmitter, the Tomahawk, which has 2,000 feet. We have a director station too, so directors can watch and direct really in real time.
You know, the other thing I'll say too, Chad, I have a question with the goggles. You know, so, you know, Sean's specialty is doing sort of the adventure films. You know, he's schlepping either up a mountain or, you know, we're down in a canyon. So that's where also these monitors come in really handy, I think, is, you know, we have to have peripheral vision. You know, we're hopping over rocks, we're going up hillside. So having these trays and having these things, you know, sort of mounted to us, and then we also have our peripheral vision, I think that keeps us more mobile and it keeps us safer because of these environments that we're in.
But yes, I'd love to try Oculus Rift with this.
Yeah, nothing against it.
Yeah,
great. No, this is all great stuff. Really appreciate you guys doing this. But yeah, I mean, it's surprising to know how much, you know, it really goes into it. You know, jumping from the DJI Phantom and going all the way up to the larger copters out there. But as far as you know, I guess you were talking about creating a signature move. So I guess, you know, it's very similar to a lot of things that you do as a camera operator, developing your playlist of things that you practice. You know, I mean, one of the biggest things for you know, racking focus manually is you need to practice it, and I'm sure all of that tends to go along with the same disciplines into you know, any camera platform that you're running on.
Yeah, and, you know, as soon as we're done with the Hangout, which we're happy to be here, but as soon as we're done, we're heading out and we're flying, because we have jobs coming in for next week, and we need to make sure that we keep logging hours, keep testing the equipment, We even follow things like, there's a report in the news that NASA's tracking a solar storm which could impact GPS. So we want to go out and make sure that that these the aurora borealis that you could see in Colorado last night, or I think it's tomorrow, isn't going to impact our flight. So it's stuff like that. It's like having that much attention to detail. It really does matter just getting the thing in the air, and then from there it's all about really just icing our playbook so that when we're out there and we're on a shoot, it becomes like we just have our go-to moves. We don't have to say anything. We know what the environment needs, what the shot entails, beforehand, and we hit the ground running like that.
And how many hours would you say would need to be logged to get to the point where you're successfully piloting one of those larger drones, in terms of just practicing? And they say there's a certain amount of hours you need to do this to be successful at it. What would you say for
Hire UAV Pro, we before the FAA even said what they said recently with NPRM rules, we started creating badges for how many hours people had, try to vet that out, where it was like I think it's like 100 to 1 to 250. That's like your very your basic. Up to 250 hours is you're still sort of an introductory pilot. I know that sounds like a lot of hours, but it's not a lot of time still to really understand your equipment. I mean, I don't think there's a golden rule. I think you can be good. You can get good at this very quickly. Like, that's the beauty of what we're flying. The technology is sound. There's a lot of built-in stuff that flies itself. So as far as keeping a drone in the air, there's no magic number, but once you start going into heavier payload, professional jobs, other people around on the ground relying upon you getting the shot, and you're talking about 10 minutes of flight time, where the window, you might pop that thing up, and it takes you 2 minutes before you're exposed correctly and you're even ready to shoot. And now you've got 6 minutes to fly this thing to get the shot that you need for a director before you got to pull that thing back and barely get that thing home before it's wobbling in the air on its last breath of battery. That's where we're talking about the truly professional level, and we're talking about hundreds, if not thousands, of hours at that time.
Yeah, it's a time thing too. I when I started this, before I even went out to shoot a first job, I just shot nonstop. I went to events, and where it was safe and it made sense, I pretended like that was the job for the day and just kind of worked on my logistics. And when you add up 10 or 15 minutes at a time per flight, getting a couple hundred hours full time takes several months, maybe 6 months. You kind of know as a pilot, right? You could tell the fear factor goes down. You start, instead of thinking about moves, you're feeling them. It's like a video game. That's why kids are so good with these things, because they don't have to think about left, right, up, down. They feel it. And so then you transcend kind of in that on the sticks, where you're just starting to feel the moves. Then your confidence level goes up to where you're going to make an investment. Then scary all over again. Putting a couple hundred more hours on this, and that's a lot of flights, 200 hours, 10 minutes at a time. Another year and a half getting really competent until you jump up to the octo. Some guys I know go from Phantom to octo, and that can be done. I'm not saying it can't, but again, it's making best use of time in the air when you're up there, and judgment calls. Like we got in that canyon, for example, the GPS was fading in and out. So we had 10 satellites and we had 6. You're supposed to stay at 7 for a good clean lock. I can take that off of GPS and fly in what's called attitude mode, which will keep the helicopter level, but it'll just wander. If the wind blows, it'll just kind of coast with the wind. So I was going between GPS, and just because the experience I had, taking it out of GPS to attitude, it was too windy, putting it back in GPS, using a lock, but then it wandered too close to a wall. And I was turned around, I had no idea which way was forward, and experience told me, okay, bump, show tiny inputs to show which way you're going. As soon as I figured it out, I got away from the wall and I throttled up, and altitude's your friend. things like that, those take kind of hundreds of hours and unfortunately a few crashes
Yeah.
to become part of your reflexes, if you will.
And I want to be clear too, it doesn't mean that anyone who's flying a Phantom is, in some ways doesn't know what they're doing. I don't want to make that at all. I mean, we have a lot of businesses on Hire UAV Pro that they're flying the Phantom and they're putting in a lot of hours on that. And there's plenty of professional operators that fly a Phantom. There's a lot of benefits to having a Phantom. I think what was a recent job request you had out in Fiji, right?
Yeah.
I think somebody contacted Sean about going to Fiji to prospect an island for a reality show, and they asked for the Phantom.
Yeah. Because with the Hero 4 in the right hands in post, a lot of times you can't tell the difference.
Right.
But it's the piloting, the twitching, and that's a couple hundred hours on the stick that'll smooth itself out with practice. Yeah. But it'll be interesting to see what the FAA says for number of hours for long flight to the licensure.
Cool.
Should we?
Great. Yeah, I think we're
Open it
gonna
up.
open it up to questions now. So it'll probably take them a little bit to get their questions in. And in the meantime, wow, look what we got here.
What?
Oh wow! Cheers, guys. Sorry, sorry we didn't give you.
Out in Denver, we're still just shy of 4 o'clock. So
That's
yeah,
right.
Yeah,
That's right.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere for us. So, so we're ahead. We're in the future. We're ahead of you. We're in the future. But
Creative Network guys that are on, if you have any questions for Sean and Graham here about drones, the drones they're using, the cameras they're using on those drones, any of the FAA regulations or anything related to drones, throw your questions at us, and
yeah.
see if we can get some answers for you here. We'll
Yeah.
take a minute to get those in.
Yeah, we'll wait for those to come rolling in. Like they're going to be quick and fast, rapid fire. I know it.
I should say, everyone, there's a few people to follow on Twitter, especially in regards to FAA and regulations. Probably one of the leading legal experts in the drone field right now is Brendan Dolman. And I forget, he works for a law firm out of DC, I believe.
New York City.
New York City. He tried the first federal cases that overturned FAA shutting down 2 different operators. He represented both of those pilots in both cases. Those fines and cease and desist were overturned a few years ago. Brendan Schulman,
Okay.
really active on Twitter.
And his partner, Peter Sapp, is another attorney, and he has the Drone Pilots Association. So it has something like 450 members, or maybe it's 4,000 members. It's a big number of people that are basically, part of this organization. It's well represented, and it is Brendan and Peter that do work together. And I realized I'm looking at some of the comments here, and somebody mentioned that the Hire UAV Pro site is down right now, which is just fantastic. I was hacked last night at about midnight and spent most of the night trying to restore my database, and it was working this morning. So apologies to Ken. We'll be up and running as soon as the call is over. Please, stay tuned. First time I've really been hacked like this, so apologies. Unbelievable timing.
Yeah, Murphy's Law is one.
Yeah.
That's great. And I think Pascal was asking a question just about, speaking of budgets, he wanted you to talk about the price and cost towards your clients, maybe giving some general pricing guidelines for how you would price out drone flight towards your clients.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's usually based on, I've gone back and forth. I have, my standard is a half day and a full day structure. And then obviously based on what camera you want flown. Or I've had a lot of requests now that I have a heavy lifter. A lot of production companies have their own Dragons and Epics that they need hauled. So, the range for the low end, you're looking, $500, $600, $700 a day for a quad for a professional operator. The top operators with the heavy lifters, usually the land about 5,000 a day, and then the camera rental is separate, $500 to $800 usually for Red Epic. So, you know, generally $4,500 to $6,500 a day for the heavy lift with the Red Epic. That's video, travel, and per diem extra, obviously. 900 with the GH4. You know, you're looking anywhere from, you know, 800-900 half day up to 3,000 full day for 4K kind of.
I'd say, you know, another good resource for that too, for anyone. Again, sorry about the website, but we did features about a month ago where we featured about 15, 20 businesses, and they gave us a lot of information about you know, who their clients were, what were they flying, what their goals were, and there's some information in there that sort of gives you an indication of how they're generating their budgets as well. And we've seen a lot of people in our network that are listed on the Hire AV Pro website. They're very, you know, they're very interested in talking. They're very open about what they do. So if you have questions specific about that, and I encourage you to kind of look through the database on Hire AV Pro and find someone in your area. You know, I think people forget, because, you know, when you invest money in the technology, you want to see a return on your investment. And so people are, you know, out there trying to get work done. But I think what's important is we need to remember that we're a community as well. And so this information, you know, we should all be holding each other to a higher standard. And as long as as long as we're professional, you know, there's no reason why, you know, somebody should come in and, you know, we be able to charge, you know, 1/10 the cost of what we're charging. You know, this is a professional business, so so we should all treat ourselves that way.
Yeah, and I always ask the logistics. Some of like, for instance, that was a long travel, a lot of boat rides, a lot of headache. But the money wasn't high end. They had a set fee, but it was for you know, production that could have led to a lot of the business. And so obviously, like every other camera operator, there's a lot of negotiation
Right.
on price, but it's purely the.
So we got someone asking about wind and temperature and other factors that might limit flight. Is that the next question you guys see?
Yeah, that's the next question. Go for it.
There's a lot of things that can influence flight. Yeah, wind and temperature. You know, the amount of sleep you got. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. It's funny. The flight times, you know, it's usually 10 minutes is kind of, anything above 10 minutes is golden. I know a lot of people will say it's kind of, you know, it's a contest in this world how long we can stay up. You know, I can fly a half an hour, blah blah blah. But for the heavier cameras, anything 5 pounds to 10 pounds is what the Red and all the kit weighs total. 30-pound total for the aircraft. Temperature, firstly, is you know, either too hot or too cold. Batteries, lithium polymer batteries are what we use, and it's a chemical reaction within that plastic to generate electricity, to store and generate. As those molecules become hot, or really cold, it slows down. So you may cut your battery time down, you know, 5-6 minutes. All good on-screen displays on your radio will have a voltage counter in the corner. And when you start flying, you have to understand what your max and what your minimum voltage is. DJI makes, and a lot of other manufacturers, there's an LED, really bright LED flashing on the rear of the aircraft that lets you know, A, how many satellites you have, if it's a good green blink or a single purple blink, depending on what kind of flight control you use. That's your visual to say, okay, you don't even have to look at the satellite counter on your screen. That'll tell you what kind of signal you have, good signal lock you have. Same thing with voltage. It'll blink a yellow at a first stage warning. That means you've got about 3-4 minutes before the second stage warning, which is the red light. It means get your butt on the ground. So again, it's practice, but there are safeguards both on a visual display as well as a visual display, an onboard visual display to tell you. Temperature, altitude. Like I said, I do a lot of high mountain flying. Phantoms, unfortunately, don't do well above 10,000 feet. There's just not enough goose, not enough gas to really fly for a long time. It can happen, but the air pressure is just so thin that it falls quickly. The bigger hexacopters handle that better, but you're going to burn batteries.
Yeah.
And taking care of your batteries too.
Oh yeah, yep, definitely. Now there's another question. It's what are the most exciting applications being proposed for drones at the moment? I'm not sure exactly what type of applications we're talking about, whether it's like a physical application on the drone or if we're talking about a another like application to use with the drone. But you want to speak to something like that?
About, not delivery. Industrial, like we are film and photography. That's the majority of applications for this. Obviously, then you've got the GIS folks and people that are in mapping, photogrammetry, and we've seen a lot of that at autonomous avionics. People go in there and are putting multispectral cameras on drones and flying those. That's going to be a huge industry, and in fact, tying back to the FAA regulations, that's one that's going to be much more sensitive to regulate because a lot of that relies upon autonomous functioning, meaning the operator isn't even in control of the aircraft. This thing's flying a set of coordinates in a lattice formation and then returning to home and computing that data onto a card, which then can be read by a piece of software. A big startup company in San Francisco, I know you have people watching out in San Francisco, is Skycatch, and they're focused on doing a lot of the mapping, and they have their own proprietary software that does that. But then obviously anyone who follows the news, I think everyone has been following the new startups and the Kickstarter drones that we've seen. Like anything from the little lifeguard drone that's carrying the inflatable inner tube, and it can drop it in the water. I think a salt tablet dissolves immediately and this thing inflates. I mean, how brilliant of an application is that? You put that on a Phantom, and now rather than running a lifeguard out and 100 yards off into like a riptide, you've got a drone that can be scrambled in less than a minute and reach its target and drop a life preserver on somebody. I mean, that's the beauty of drones. And I think, I did a podcast for Hire UAV Pro about a year ago, must have been 8 months ago, when they were doing their flight testing sites where they were testing. They created an environment in Ohio, and they talked a lot about just the future of flight, because they've been involved in flight during the space, when we were trying to go out to the moon. And it's the point that sticks with me is they say, with drones, there is no way today to predict what we're going to be doing with these things in 10 years. Yeah. And these little advances that we see with the light preserver and the mapping functions that we're doing now, I think they're going to be totally dwarfed in comparison, to 10 years from now, when these things are doing things we never even thought were possible.
Yes. It's so early on, we don't know. We don't know what we don't know. I think a lot of the wildlife conservation, anti-poaching, surveillance on big areas, those are some of the really positive things that can happen. But again, there's so much within industry that we don't know yet. The mapping part is really incredible how mapping it is.
Cool.
Definitely. Very interesting.
Yeah, I think we got another question or discussion point that popped up from East Alabama Media, and he said, I've discovered that talking up front about the restrictions you put on weather conditions, risks, etc., before flying the UAV early in the discussion tends to increase a client's level of confidence. Do you find yourself having to speak to that with clients, trying to get them more confident about what you're doing?
Absolutely.
In regards to weather, or
regards to weather or other types of risk, restrictions, safety implications involved?
Yeah, I mean, I like to do a review. I ask for addresses and basic story, or what the story we're trying to capture, and I'll do a pretty extensive search in Google Earth, and I'll look for obstacles. I'll look for surrounding areas, because a lot of times, even with a wide lens, your subject is here, but you need to fly over something else behind you to capture what you're going at. I'm not going to say, sure, great, let's do this, and show up and find out, oh, I've got to fly over here. A lot of times, and even more as this industry matures, I always ask for permission. Now I'm getting better at working with clients ahead of time, saying, you know what, there's a structure over here in such and such building. We need to find out who owns that building and ask for approval. And that's how I follow a lot what's gone on in England specifically, and in Australia with their regulations. If you look what's required for them to fly as licensed UAV pilots there, they need approval of any building, they need approval and permission to fly over their sites. And that happens a lot. And so if that's gets too complicated, then there's always a plan B. Well, here's an open space here, here's some public space that I'm legally allowed to launch from. Why don't we take it this way? So it's a really back and forth with clients and pilots.
Yeah, I would say, in general too, just general point to that, with Hire UAV Pro, we get a lot of requests that it's just an educational process right now. Making sure people know what they're capable of, what is needed on the ground, where we need to fly, all those things. I think, to speak to the point that was made, is absolutely a way to increase the confidence, not just that the flight's possible, but the confidence in the operator. If you have someone like Sean telling you all of these things that are considerations that you didn't even think of, rather than hiding them and saying, oh, don't worry about it, I'm going to show up, I'm going to rock the job, no problems, no questions asked. I think that's a great way that displays what a professional operator is. And so that's why I encourage people, through Hire UAV Pro, put all the information out there, put all the risks out there, like let people know what they are. And then, that doesn't mean that that's going to happen. It just means like, this is things you have to be mindful of if you're going to do this professionally.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this next question is twofold, but cheers. But it's first from Steve. It says, do you see battery life improving in the near future? And Graham, can anyone beat Kentucky in the NCAA tournament?
Well,
everybody wants to know that.
Battery life, Elon Musk is our savior, I think. There's lithium ion and lithium polymer batteries are getting lighter, flatter, faster, and their capacity is going up. So I think the push with both solar and home storage of electricity and electric cars will, that's such a huge, and obviously they're building that mega factory. I'm really excited to see what happens. But, for me, small big packs are 4 pounds, the big ones are 7 pounds, and that's what we have now. But it's pretty incredible that there's even a 22,000 milliamp hour battery available today, because most guys that had to fly big rigs had to strap 3 or 4 batteries to get to 22,000. But now I think,
and the shipment considerations. These things like they can't be in a lot of cases they can't be flown, right? So they have to be.
Well, you could still, the TSA, believe it or not, will allow these on carry-on in a LiPo safe bag, and so you have to carry them on. You can't keep them in the belly of the aircraft.
Wow.
Actually.
Oh yeah. Sorry, the shipping is special label.
Yeah. Like if you order one from China, it's like it has to be put on a boat. So it's like streamlining that process as well is going to change the battery.
Gotcha.
And as far as beating Kentucky NCAA tournament, I'm an University of Arizona alum, and they're the 2 seed in the bracket just below Kentucky. They're going to play each other in the Final Four. Absolutely. After they knock out Wisconsin. So yeah, absolutely. Kentucky in the tournament.
Yeah, Kentucky is our top hat in Tennessee. So I guess maybe choose them. I don't know. They're in my bracket. They're in my bracket as being the winner. So I hope I win our office pool. That would be the best thing for me. So I'm pulling for them.
Go Harvard. Will asks, what are your personal flight restrictions for flying over crowds, such as at a live event? Do you guys have any kind of rules there for yourself on what you'll do and what you won't do?
I'll do it. Won't fly over a crowd. Perimeter shots, I will. Oh yeah, we expected a job for Anheuser-Busch last summer for the Made in America concerts in LA and Philadelphia. 50, 60,000 people, one in downtown LA. We were on the fire marshal, who I guess is famous out in LA for shutting drone pilots down last minute. Everything was a go, but they wanted more crowd shots from within the crowd. People's natural reaction is to try to knock these things down. And for
terrible.
For a few people, I mean, I went through a string of last year. I got threatened to get shot down, 3 days out in a week. It's kind of funny to me that people don't understand they want to shoot. But don't fly over large crowds. I will fly and have flown around perimeter, and that's the same thing because I would crop out. It looks like you're standing in the middle of a crowd. Or a lot of times it's good to ask, or if you're hosting an event, clear out an area that's a safe area in the middle of a crowd. Stages are a great place behind stages, flying up and over. But no, sometimes you can't avoid people walking underneath you. But again, staying visible, having spotters, it's very important also when you're working on sets to find somebody, a PA or somebody that will tell people, hey, this is happening, or it's just common sense. It's thinking through the things that you can't predict.
And I'll give a shout out.
No crowds.
I want to give a shout out to Roman. He's with Flyworks in Georgia. I get a lot of people that send me cool video clips that I can integrate and use in our own media for Hire UAV Pro. And so he has I think he just recently flew a Lady Gaga concert that was in downtown Atlanta, and he had a lot of personal flight restrictions as well with that. He got amazing footage, but he flew a perimeter. He really did a good job of mapping out where he was going to fly, and it just I think then that's where being knowledgeable in the production and with cameras comes into play. All right, I'm going to put this lens on it and fly from here, as opposed to using my wide-angle lens and needing to be all up in there.
That also speaks to if you're trying to, you want somebody to fly indoors. That's a whole different ball of wax, because you have to have somebody that's a very competent pilot to fly off of GPS lock. GPS lock will keep you move the stick and tell it to go over here and stop, it stops. In attitude mode, again, like I said before, you move the stick and it keeps floating, coasting. You have to use attitude mode indoors. So that takes a special type of pilot if you want. I've shot in manufacturing plants and bigger indoor buildings. It can be a spicy proposition. But there's some really cool footage out there of indoor concerts that guys have flown and done a great job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Well, I think we have another one here from Laura. Do you think someone who is disabled and out of work could learn to be a drone operator? And I think definitely on that.
That's an interesting
that's something like if you're a camera operator and maybe you got hurt, or if you want to do visuals and want to get into it and you just can't physically walk around with it, I think that's definitely a possibility for people.
One of my favorite local guys, Kirk Williams is his name, Bird's Eye Optics out of Boulder, Colorado. Got a mountain bike wreck a number of years ago. It was an adventure with a still photographer. Broke a few vertebrae and is in a chair. And I think he's got limited use of his hands. But he has his own company. And he flies a Sinistar, an Octo, and does a great job. He's modified his sticks. He puts extensions on his sticks, and so he can fly with a longer stick and from his chair. Granted, some of his access to some of these, extreme, backcountry stuff can be limited, but he's got a Razor, a four-wheeler, and does a lot of desert shooting, a lot of motorcycling, and he's great. He works with the Special Olympics, I know he did a couple shoots in California, or the Arctic. Yeah, absolutely nothing so. Yeah. I know it's possible.
Cool.
Very cool.
Well, great. Well, I think we're getting to the end of it here. I don't know you guys, basketball, get ready. March Madness. Oh, I almost broke something. But we're getting to the end of it, and definitely want to thank you guys for tuning in, and thank you guys for joining us and give us all your information. And
yeah, really appreciate it, guys.
It's going to be great.
This has been really informative, and I think that our creative network tuning in has really enjoyed it. And we'll we're recording this, so we'll try to post it soon for people who missed out, and for you guys to share as well. But Sean, Graham, appreciate your time so much. This has been great.
Yeah, as always.
That's awesome. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Beers next time.
Cool, great. Yeah, beers next time.
Next time.
We'll send a drone your way with a 6-pack.
Sounds great. Thank you.
But yeah, so always make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's going to be a good way. We're always posting original content there and trying to get more stuff out there for you to learn more about the video business and learn more about what we're doing too. Also, we are putting up a new section to our website, and it's called Stories. And Graham provided us with the first story that's going to be up there, which is going to be a conversation, between us and him. He provided us a lot more information about drones and the flights and FAA restrictions and things like that. So definitely check that out. We're going to try and put that live this week, so you can check that out. And we're going to have other stories from other people who are in the top of their game on what they're doing with cinematography, or if they're creating something specialized in their business. But we're going to be putting up stories here periodically as we get them in. If you guys out there want to provide a story, if you do a lot of maybe reviews or cinematography or provide behind the scenes stuff, feel free to let us know, and you can email us at, let me pull up the email here so you guys can write this down, but email us at network@studionow.com, and that will go to me and Cameron, and we'll talk more about getting you connected on a story. But
check out hireuavpro.com and Cloudbase. And check those guys out.
Yeah.
So thanks again, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it. No, you guys go fly and have fun and do cool stuff. All right. See ya. Thanks, everybody. Bye.